The Classical Style by Charles Roson.
Mozart String Quintets 1. Mozart String Quartets with 2 violas. The viola was Mozart's favorite string instrument, and he loved rich inner part writing. His music had a complexity in the inner voices that had disappeared since the death of Bach. Before Mozart, the string quintet was largely treated as a duet between two soloists. Mozart's use of the richer medium allowed for a complex intimacy of chamber music. Mozart's first quintet was composed when he was only 17 years old. He turned to the string quintet 3 different times in his life, each time after a series of quartets. Mozart's quintets were filled with remarkable things, like the witty play on a 2-note figure in the minuet. He also used echo effects and antiphonal exchanges between the highest and lower instruments. Only with the eccentric and rhapsodic style of the late Haydn trios was a kind of concertant chamber music to reach real profundity. But Mozart's string quintets with 2 violas remain a significant achievement in chamber music. Mozart's String Quintet K. 174 is a remarkable work for its breadth of conception and complexity. It is more expansive and dramatic than his previous string quartets, and the finale is the most complex contrapuntal work he wrote for many years. The work is indebted to Haydn's Son quartets, but Mozart's instinctive understanding of the difference between quintet and quartet is remarkable. Mozart's return to chamber music. Mozart's 6 quartets of 1782–85 were an emulation of Haydn, but with a new originality. He then wrote the personal Hofmeister quartet in tribute to Haydn. In 1787, Mozart returned to the string quintet and wrote 2 grander works than anything Haydn had conceived. The opening of the C major quintet K 515 recalls Haydn's Op. 33 No. 3, but with a larger period imposed on Haydn's system of phrasing. Mozart's use of irregular phrase lengths helped to assure the feeling of continuity, and the symmetrical arrangement gave it balance. This technique is evident in the transition from the 3rd to the 4th phrase of the opening paragraph of K 515. Mozart's return to chamber music was a pivotal moment in his career. It showcased his mastery and originality while paying tribute to his mentor and friend, Haydn. This is a broad and majestic work due to its tonal solidity. Mozart avoids a real movement away from the tonic for a longer time than in any work he had written until then. The second group has a majestic symmetry of its own. Its first theme begins with an emphatic pedal on G, now become the tonic, and an expressively serpentine phrase above it, and is repeated with a counter-subject. The second theme has a syncopated rhythm in the first violin, and its diminution in the other instruments. After the expressive instability of the cadence, the pedal point returns. Mozart's expansion of the sonata form. Mozart's expansion of the sonata form in the exposition is what makes this work unique. He uses a hierarchy of periodic movement phrase, paragraph, and section to create a large periodic structure. By using motivic fragments instead of a clearly defined melody, Mozart anticipates Beethoven's use of these motifs in a continuous unbroken motion within the paragraph. This technique contributes to the majestic proportions of the movement. Mozart renounces much of the seductive harmonic color that appears in the first measures of almost all his other works. He postpones the use of the supertonic, the submediant, and the subdominant, defining nothing but pure tonic and dominant for 14 measures. The tonal areas of Mozart's expositions generally have a tranquil solidity absent from Haydn's more nervous and openly dynamic forms. This, combined with Haydn's motivic technique of exposition and expansion, creates a work with majestic proportions without weakening the lyric intensity. The addition of a long, slow introduction was a simple solution to adding weight to the sonata form. But it wasn't until Mozart's D major quintet and the Haydn symphonies of the 1790s that new relationships between the introductions and the following allegros were revealed. Mozart chose the most difficult and most satisfactory way of increasing the range of the first half of the sonata, the expansion of the opening tonic section. This created tension while remaining at the extreme point of resolution. To achieve this, Mozart used a beautiful variety of means, withholding all chromatic color from the opening and introducing it more and more as the section proceeds. He also altered the aspect and function of the counterstatement, making the tonic unstable without actually denying it. The expansion of Plagal cadence. The following is one of the most extraordinary expansions of a progression, a simple Plagal phrase 4-1. Is decorated. The F major starts once again and then is turned into F minor, and the cadence is lengthened and made deceptive. And finally and most magnificently, this phrase is repeated with the A flat of the F minor chord, made the basis of an extraordinary inner expansion, still outlining essentially the same cadence, in which the 5 previous measures have become 10, and the harmonic resonance is immensely widened without really leaving the tonic. Following this, and for the first time, the chromatic movement becomes at last truly directional. Beethoven's innovative first group expansion. In some works, Beethoven modulated to another secondary key with a new theme before establishing the dominant. This lengthened the first group and prepared his modulation. In the Ninth Symphony, Beethoven replayed the main theme on B flat major, the submediant, while still sounding like the tonality had not left the tonic D minor. This widened the significance of the tonic and expanded the first group. And in the Sonata Op. 111, Beethoven expanded the tonic area with a fugal development before modulating to the submediant. This was another way he expanded the first group. Beethoven's innovative first group expansion. If listeners measured their experiences by the clock, the development section of the C major quintet would seem too short, but complexity and intensity are a more than adequate substitute for length. If listeners measured their experiences by the clock, the development section of the C major quintet would seem too short, but complexity and intensity are a more than adequate substitute for length. Almost the whole development is in minor, making the return to C major grand and luminous. The coda, demanded by the dimensions of what precedes, is masterly. The closing theme, which in the exposition was a tonic pedal on G, starts once again as a pedal on G, becoming thereby a dominant pedal instead of a tonic. The beginning of a gigantic cadence of 47 measures, essentially the simplest of all cadences in its outline, although brilliantly enlivened in its detail. The simplicity of Mozart's quintet. As the sonata became academic, it had to be expanded with new material and sequential development. But Mozart was still able to heap on the form all the weight he wished it to bear. The slow movement and the finale are sonata movements without development sections. Both begin leisurely with a succession of 2 clearly separate themes in the tonic. The finale has some characteristics of the rondo, with squarely articulated themes, loose transitions, and sectional structure. The secondary development of the sonata is expanded and emphasizes the subdominant. In this movement, we can see the sonata rondo latent in the sonata finale. We can understand the aesthetic reasons for its existence. The necessary looseness of a finale and its less dramatic character allow for Mozart's great melodic abundance. In the second group there are 3 complete new melodies, a 4th clearly derived from one of them, and a 5th developed from the opening theme, the last being perhaps the most striking, if not the most gracious of them.